Always fun to be on location, and certainly when you're in front of a beautiful home that looks brand new. And the reason it looks brand new is because of the landscape design, and it's a formal landscape design that we're featuring here today, Mark, and it's one that you're quite familiar with here on this property.
Very familiar, and it's making me feel old today. Over 25 years ago, this was a parade home, and we did the original landscape here.
A parade home. Now, I wasn't even aware of that.
It was, and you're going to see some things that actually we installed over 25 years ago. One of them is this beautiful pear tree directly behind us.
Well, the good news on the property here is that you have worked with it in the past because you put it in initially.
Yes.
The bad news is 25 years has passed and a lot of water under the bridge, as they say.
The home has had several owners, and actually there was a time of multiple years that there wasn't an owner living here.
Serious.
Seriously.
Hard to believe.
Well, and so the new owners, they wanted to create their own new look, and it is their home, their property, and they really wanted a nice formal look, and I think it goes perfectly with the house.
Yeah, it does. And you know, we were talking ahead of time here before we went on. The home looks way newer than it is, and it's because of the landscaping. And a great point there being that, you know, you put in landscaping from Linton's, you're going to add the value of your home and your property.
It freshens up the look, and it gives the home curb appeal.
Now, you touched on the challenge a little bit. What was the biggest challenge here, Mark?
Well, the biggest challenge is we've got a beautiful house that was hidden by old, tired landscape.
Really bad.
Yeah. And the homeowners had seen our work before, and they wanted us to provide an ideal plan. And what we did quite differently here this time for these homeowners was we really enlarged the beds. It's a pretty good size home. They're blessed with a lot of property here. And so instead of having tight beds up against the property, we really enlarged them, and it gives the plants plenty of room to grow, and it also adds a place for your eye to rest. And just actually having some areas where there's nothing, just stone ground cover, is very appealing.
Yeah. Now, this move to larger beds, is that kind of something that's happened in the last few years? Because I like the look personally.
It's a very nice look, and it just depends upon how much property you're blessed with along with the house.
That's the key, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And so this is in proportion to the property here.
Gotcha. Well, let's get started and maybe start with that tree that you talked about.
Okay, so anchoring the corner here is a Bradford pear tree, limbed up the tree so that you can see the house. And then we wanted to frame the entrance, and we're using these boxwoods here, and this creates the look and the feel of a formal landscape. And so we've planted them fairly close together. Actually, you can see it's starting to look like a formal hedge, and in just a year, by pruning the tops and then the sides here, you're going to have a nice, neat, tidy hedge. And we always want a contrast of not only colors but textures as well. And so we've got kind of the stiff, rigid look of the formal boxwood hedge following the outline of the sidewalk and driveway here. And then for a nice contrast and a splash of color, we've got these dwarf golden hostas, which do well underneath the shade of the tree.
All this looks great right now, but just imagine as the years go by, it's just going to get neater and neater, right?
Absolutely. And this was just planted. We just finished last week.
Really?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have guessed it.
Wanted to share with the viewers out there that as you walk around, you're going to notice spotlights at the base of the trees, and we've got path lights that highlight this. And I actually have not been here in the evening, but I'm excited to come back and see how it takes on a total different transformation. And we've got a lot of lighting here, not only lights up the landscape, but it provides some additional security and lights up the house quite well.
Lighting and water features kind of go together with your design, doesn't it?
They do, and water is like a magnet, and the sound of falling water is, of course, very relaxing and appealing. And we chose this formal fountain to go with the formal landscape, and just behind the fountain happens to be their formal dining room. And so when you're inside there looking out, you can also appreciate this from inside the house. And the nice thing about this fountain here is it doesn't have a backside. It's the same look, 360 degrees all the way around.
Great point. Well, you've got some nice things going on over here on the side too.
Well, this is the side of the garage here, and basically was a blank canvas, and we trained some of our ornamental trees into a form called espalier, and that's what we've done with this flowering crab. I love the dark burgundy colored branches. This is a dark pink flower that appears in the springtime. The leaves are going to give us a splash of color in the fall as they turn beautiful gold, and then it produces these little crab apples which dry up like a raisin, which are a nice way to attract some birds and wildlife to the property.
Interesting. Not only do you have a staff of professionals at Linton's Enchanted Gardens that you work with and train, but you have all those plants, trees, and shrubs you're training too.
There you go. Absolutely correct.
What's next here, Mark?
Well, we repurposed some hostas. These were part of the original landscape, and we transplanted them. Hostas are a tough perennial, and they went through the transplanting just fine. We are anchoring the corner of the garage here with this slender Hinoki cypress. And again, we're always wanting for a contrast of textures. And this is nice, soft to the touch evergreen. Gives us a little bit of height, but not a lot of width. And down at the base, again, we've got another one of our path lights that guides the guests up to the front entrance.
You've touched on the ground cover, but we've seen this quite often in your displays.
You know, it is one of my all-time favorites. It's a man-made ground cover called stonebark ground cover, and it is designed to look like bark nuggets, but the nice thing is, unlike bark, it doesn't rot, it doesn't decay, you don't have to replenish it every year. We can put a woven fabric weed barrier underneath there to control weed growth. It lets water go through but prevents any weeds from coming up. It looks like fresh new bark 12 months a year and for the next 20 plus years. It makes it very low maintenance.
Yeah, I really like it. It's cool. Fun to play with too.
It is. We've also got some little dwarf evergreens around the fountain here. We wanted the fountain to be the main focal point as you walked up to the entrance here. These are called Andorra junipers. They actually will never get any taller than what you see right now. They're going to spread out in width, and just makes the fountain a nice wow. And as you look towards the house, we've continued the boxwood hedge for a nice formal look, and that will stay below the base of the windows there. And then we've got some height on each side of the windows with the columnar upright U's. I'd like to see those get to be about 5 to 6 feet in the future.
Yeah, that boxwood hedge, Mark, does a nice job to bring in the driveway because you've used the boxwoods there, haven't you?
We did, and you're going to see a continuation of the boxwoods here.
I love that theme.
You know, the boxwoods were in straight lines here. We're doing a lazy S curve just to give it some movement. Craig, this happens to be one of the original trees here. This is a beautiful dogwood tree. It was gorgeous this past spring. Actually, over 25 years ago, we planted this here.
You remember when you were 13 when you planted this?
Yeah, exactly. No, we've repurposed it and we've worked around it. We're highlighting it with a spotlight there. And again, we've got hostas in here because of the shaded conditions. And we've got one of our little green Japanese lace leaf maples tucked back here just for a little bit of height. This is going to give us a nice splash of color in the fall when those leaves turn bright gold.
You know, the dogwood though, the show that this dogwood will put on in the spring, I think is as beautiful as it gets.
They are awesome. And then you also get fall color as well with the leaves. You get red, yellows, and oranges in the leaves. Also wanted to share with the viewers that we put in a little garden path here, and we chose these stones because they tie in with the color of our ground cover here. But instead of having to step over the landscape or walk all the way around, we wanted to leave a little path here so the homeowners had easy access out to the front yard. And then we've got a splash here of seasonal color. These are our low maintenance drift roses. Craig, these bloom non-stop spring, summer, and fall, and each one puts out over 2,000 blooms each season. And these are just amazing. I can't say enough good words about them.
I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? 2,000 from each plant. And you do the math there, that's a lot of roses.
That's a lot of flowers,
yes. Yeah.
You're going to see this area of bare dirt here, and it's like, why do we have an area of bare dirt?
Hey Mark, why do you have this area of bare dirt?
Well, thanks for asking. Well, a couple of reasons. This fall we're planning on putting bulbs in there that will come up in the springtime, and so a nice splash of early spring color. And then after those are done, can plant spring annuals. The homeowners have a couple of young girls. They can come in here. It can be a weekend family project. They can get their hands in the dirt and make some family memories. And then this fall we're going to recommend some cool season annuals as well. And we've got the boxwoods as a nice backdrop, and then we're using our knockout roses for a little bit of height over the boxwoods. You're going to see balance and symmetry because of the formal type of look here, where we've got the columnar U's on each side of the windows. That's repeated on the other side of the sidewalk.
I tell you, the simplicity here, but the creativity is just phenomenal. And Mark, it's so clean looking. That's what strikes me too about your design.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Also wanted to share with the viewers here, we are using a paving brick edging. This is the lowest maintenance type of edging. It's really easy to run your lawnmower wheel along the edging here. And we also put a brick edge in there, which is for support, and it keeps them in that perfect curve. It also keeps them from sinking as well. And I love the color combination that we've got. It blends in with the exterior of the house.
Very good, and it kind of leads us down the path here, doesn't it, to the side of the house?
It does. We're anchoring the corner here with this beautiful red Japanese maple. We've got some color going on here with our blue hardy geraniums. And then for some additional interest and a splash of color, we've got our gold thread cypress here.
All right, plenty of great ideas here for you. Hopefully you can implement some or all of what we've talked about as we create a formal landscape design here in Bristol. And Mark, needless to say, this property, as beautiful as it is, sits on a beautiful view of the lake, or the river actually.
St. Joe River, yes.
And I think even next week we're going to continue with this property and maybe show some of that.
There's a lot more to share here. It was a good size job, and unfortunately we're out of time. We'll be back next week to give viewers a sneak peek of the backyard and some front yard island beds.
All right, that sounds like a winner. Good job as usual.
Thank you, Craig.
Much more coming up on our program. Don't go away. We'll be right back.